The author of this article on the National Assembly passing the revenue sharing proposal, setting up fight with the Senate. You know, I was reading it yesterday, and there's a paragraph here, and he said the allocation to the counties pales in comparison, and it could be a she, I haven't checked who the author is, pales in comparison to that of the national government. Let me see if I can find it here, but there's also another quote here that I wanted to look at. Because Ndindi Nyoro is quoted as saying, Kiharu Member of Parliament, Ndindi Nyoro, who chairs back, urged senators to pass the bill without amendments, noting that the allocation to counties considered the high level of debt financing by the national government, as well as elevated debt risk. And the Senate, and let me see, have I missed something? Oh yes, the senators had based their enhanced revenue allocation to the counties on the projected revenue collection in the current financial year. This is him still being quoted. He continues to say the national government is doing all it can to enhance its revenue collection. Counties have power to levy taxes. They must enhance their capacity to raise their own revenue collection. Okay, and I see the author of this article says National Treasury did not disburse 29.6 billion shillings to the counties in the 2021-2022 financial year due to financial constraints caused by the limited access to finance in the domestic and international markets. And let me see if I can find that comparison in this article between the national and devolved units, but I can scroll for it as you make your submission, Senator Okech.
You know, first of all, before I'm really glad that Kwame has pointed to some very important issues here, because before we talk about what we on on-source revenue in the counties to be able to supplement what they get from the national government, it is extremely important that we first of all be able to implement what the Constitution requires when it comes to vertical share of money. And this is where I have a problem with our Senate, and especially senators who come from the Kenya Kwanza side, because then they start missing the point of why Article 96 of the Constitution exists, where we are basically talking about protecting the interest of counties. What happens, Olive, is as Kwame has explained, is very simple. But I wanted to highlight a very important clarity that the nation must understand. That under Article 202 of the Constitution, the revenue that is supposed to be shared, what we call the equitable share revenue between national government and county governments, the interpretation of it is based on ordinary revenue. Ordinary revenue is what we call taxes collected within our borders, such that ordinary revenues, if you look under Article 203(2), says that 15% of that money will go to national government, local government, and then 85% will go to national government. Now, what is happening with the division of revenue bill that we have just that has just been passed? I don't want to say we have passed, because I didn't pass it as a senator. I was fighting for counties to get 4 billion.
You're distancing yourself from it.
Yes. There were three numbers that were proposed. The first number was 425 billion.
Yes.
That number was proposed by the Council of Governors. That's the money they wanted.
Yes.
In my view, I think it was a viable number. Mathematically and statistically, it was a viable number. And then there was a number that was proposed by CRA, which is the Commission of Revenue Allocation, which proposed 407. And then there was a number that was proposed by the Treasury, which was 385 billion. Now let's examine these numbers. What really disappoints me is that there is something called intellectual laziness among some of our legislatures, because the numbers as were proposed by CRA were purely mathematical issues and placement issues in the budget. What do I mean by this, Olive? You know, I drew your attention to Article 203 of the Constitution, which says that at least...
It was 219 that you drew my attention?
No, on division of revenue.
Division of revenue.
Yeah,
okay,
203.
Let me scroll.
Yeah, 203, 2. You can look at Subarticle 2. Yes. It basically says that not less than 15% of the last audited finances, right?
Yes.
Shall be given to counties.
So it says for every financial year, the equitable share of the revenue raised nationally that is allocated to county governments shall be not less than 15% of all revenue collected by the national government.
Yes, and this one is the last audited revenue and approved by Parliament. So right now we have got the last audited revenue that we actually have is 2020, 2021, but it hasn't been approved by government. In the spirit of that constitution, therefore, it means that we go back to 2019, 2020. Yes. Now, 2019, 2020, if you look at the ordinary revenue that was audited there, is about 1.7 trillion. Now, that 15%, the constitution requires that it applies to both national government and county government of the last audited accounts. So that if you're going to divide that money, now looking into the future, we should be able to look at strictly the last audited accounts. Now, if you choose to use any other formula, the constitution gives you a leeway that you can choose to use things like performance, but has to be subject to a commission that is established by the constitution. Under Article 215, that commission is CRA. It is the only commission that is in, rather, is the only institution that is in the constitution that is mandated to use any other formula than the formula given in 2032, which is the last audited finances. And that is why, if you look at the composition of the commission under Article 215, the PS of the Ministry of Finance is a member, such that the Treasury cannot come with a different number when its member is sitting in CRA. Now, CRA has suggested that because you have projected more money to be received by the country or collected by the country, let us use something called performance. And this performance must take care of what Kwame was talking about, inflation. Inflation is basically increased cost of commodities and increased expenditure growth. For instance, you might find that in this company, the workers that you have here, perhaps there is some, cost of commodities that have increased, your expenditure have increased because of change of different things in the market. So let's take care of that. And now, what the commission did, commission proposed that let's use 8.4% as that rate of increase in commodities and expenditure growth, which is fair, is an economic standard practice. That was the one area that was increasing the money for counties. Then the second issue that was in that 407 is that counties are already entitled to something called medical equipment service expenses to a tune of 5.6 billion. It is not contentious even to the Treasury. That was also included in the 407. Then the one last one that was now very annoying is that if you look at 202, there is equitable share that is supposed to be given to counties, and then there's something called county additional revenue. That is money that you can give other than equitable shares. Now, what happens is that libraries was included in the figures that the national government gave to counties of around 425 million, when they should not have included that money, because libraries are not a function of counties under Schedule 4. What is happening with the libraries is that money that is supposed to go to employees who are in the libraries, and they're not in all counties, they're in a few counties. The national government does not have a predictable way of paying them, and therefore was just giving these counties an administrative function to be able to help them pay for these libraries. Then the Treasury choose to be sneaky and putting that money for libraries in the revenue share for counties. So if you look at the 407 money that we're talking about, it was not even too much to ask for from the national government based on the formula that we're talking about. It was a statistical and placement issue. You look at, you have done your math wrong in terms of your base for commodities cost and expenditure growth, which you're supposed to use the base of 1.7 billion of 2019-2020, and you did not use it. The CRA has pointed you out that here there's an error. just adjust this based on the last audited finance, which is what you're supposed to do as members of parliament. And then you're being told that there is amount of money that has been included in this, like 425 million, that is not supposed to be here because it's a national government function, and the national government is just giving it to counties to help them pay for libraries, remove it, and then put the right money here. Then you're being told that the treasury actually does owe you money that is already for you, 5.6 billion. If you compute those, that is what was bringing about this 37 additional billion that then pushed this money to 407. Why would a senator not read and look at those mathematical problems?
Right.
Why would an MP not read and look at those placement issues and give counties what is due to them? That actually, if it's not intellectual laziness of these MPs and senators, then for me, I give it the name executive overreach. The idea that the executive has got its hands on the Senate and in the Assembly to the extent that it makes them basically abscond their duty of combing these numbers. Because remember, those numbers were also combed by a committee of parliament mandated by the Constitution called Finance and Budget, which I sit in, to be able to look at those errors. So we have passed a division of revenue bill this year with mathematical errors. And that one the nation must know. We have denied counties monies based on mathematical and placement errors that the senators from the Kenya Kwanza side have just denied people rightful money. It was not even a contentious issue. It was an issue of political expediency, which these senators must be called out for and must be punished by their people for denying them money.
All right, so we need to take a break. And now I wish Senator Sigei was here so he can explain his side of things, because he was among the 22 senators who voted against increasing the allocation as contained in the bill from 385 billion shillings to 407.
Blindly so.
We take a break, but we'll be back with more. And on that note, can we close this door? You know, every time we talk